First, I would talk to you about, digits. It's information, it's everywhere. It can be replicated very easily, and that can be a big problem, and at no cost. It can spread, more than fire. The computing power can actually make combinations that were impossible before now very easy, and then you start finding not only truth, but also conspiracies where there might or might not be. You add to this social media, which means the human desire to connect with each other. That's why we're here today. And then the fact that memory of computing is very inexpensive, so things will never die. Things will be, repeated and repeated again. If you add to this mix young people who die for some attention and want to put their information out, you have a situation in which people later in their lives will regret what they were saying when they were young. So, usually we say, oh, what we're missing is information, informed users, and this is what Robin was saying, this kind of story, and it seems like everybody was upset of it. Somebody believed in it, and now he is in jail, and he regrets it. This is not the first time that believing in fake news, in false stories, had disastrous results. Let me go with my Greek roots. The first such example was Alcibiades, one of the generals in the Athenian democracy, responsible really for the falling of democracy in Athens and in Greece, because he had information that Sicilians were actually no good. They will join Athenians as soon as they invade to fight Syracusans. He's been told like that this is the case, and at the end he has the big pump. Remember our fathers, they used to be great. So he's asking for making Athens great again. It is an old story. It is what Robin was saying she was afraid of. Yeah, that was the end of the Athenian democracy. Try to see what Google tells me about Pizzagate evidence. Everything I find there is saying that Pizzagate is a real thing, no matter what you believe. Here is answer after answer after answer. You want to find answer, whether the Pizzagate is real, ask Google. So I connect with my friends in Google and I say, this is not so. And so they said, we will try to do something about that, and they did. They brought the Wikipedia page for Pizzagate first, but then it is flooded with sites that they're supporting that Pizzagate is a real thing. It's a real conspiracy of Democrats, and they try to silence us, so don't let it. I got interested in this issue way back in 2002 when I realized that my students were confusing their ease at which they would find information with the critical thinking of this information. So it used to be the case that in order to find information, you had to do a PhD in whatever. You had to try very hard to dig in and try to find information, and eventually the analysis was not a big part of it. Now, to find information, you don't even have to try. Information comes to you. You don't have to go to find it. The problem is analyzing it, and it still is a problem, and it has become greater by the availability of search engines. Google, even today, you go and you find a big empty window with a place you can ask a question, and you can ask any question you want. You have two choices, Google search or just I'm feeling lucky, which will give you the very first thing, because Google wants to make you trust it. You want to make you believe that, they can find answer. And what kind of answers you can find? Well, back in 2005, I was looking for information about human growth hormone. It's a steroid drug. Everything I could find was telling me that it's a great thing. You pay $39.95 a month, and you can be richer, taller, thinner, sexier, you name it, you're gonna be, that's it. Google was telling me these kind of things. It's not that Google did not care. In fact, it paid, a few years later, $500 million penalty for supporting the so-called Canadian pharmacy sites. It's not that it was not caring, but would not know exactly how to react to it. Any controversial issue would be targeted. Here is about ADHD. You were looking back then, and probably in many cases today, you would find that it is a conspiracy of psychiatrists to drug all of our kids. For electoral candidates, yeah, you would find negative results up there. That is from the 2008 elections, and something that this audience will appreciate. Even the Google Translate was hacked, because back in 2010, when the big question is there money in Greece that could save the Greek economy, George Papandreou's "there is money" was translated into "no money," and that was done by hacking in a very similar way that the Google was working. So why is Google giving us all this information? Because if you don't rank high in the search results, you better not exist. If you're not easily found, you're not gonna, nobody will know your existence. This gave rise to the area that I was doing research on, called web spam, which has nothing to do with email spam. We have troubles finding good names. It is really manipulation of search engines ranking algorithm. So we create algorithms, and we being computer scientists, try to make you feel that, oh, we know everything about algorithms. We'll just create and you just sit and enjoy. Yesterday we had a speaker who was saying similar things to that. Humans can be much smarter than that, and they can manipulate them really badly. So web spam, this manipulation, is an attempt to modify the web, the structure, the contents, in such a way that it will influence the search engine results in ways beneficial to spammers. It is a very similar definition to propaganda. A propagandist is doing exactly that, tries to modify your mental trust of people and entities in such a way that eventually they will be benefited. So I wrote for the first time about that in 2005 after a lot of efforts, because at that time nobody was interested what web spam, a technical field, had to do with propaganda. You know, why a computer scientist on earth deals with propaganda? Now we have a field of computational propaganda. I feel, you know, vindicated, but sorry also that we lost so much time. So what if we believe lies? Well, okay, we feel bad about that. Nobody likes that. We might buy this kind of cheap supplement. It's not that bad, I guess, unless it doesn't kill you. You might buy a bad car, junk stocks. It costs a little bit. Well, what if you actually believe that there is a cancer treatment? You will find a lot of misinformation out there about, you know, what you should eat and what you should not eat in order to avoid cancer. It's, you know, not really reliable. That gets serious and dangerous for the individual, but also you can vote for the wrong candidate. And has it happened? Yeah, it has. This is what I worry, and this is, I'm sure, what most of us worries, that democracy depends on informed citizens, and actually it's more complicated than that. You would like us to come up with a bit of algorithms and have a website, ihavequestions.com, and there is a button that says answers. You click it and you get the answer. It doesn't work like that. It helps if you know how this technology works. So for the next few seconds, you will see me going through a set of slides which are of technical matter. I had hoped that I could give you the technicality. You shouldn't feel disempowered that you do not understand algorithms, because I'm sure that the vast majority of people think that algorithms is something godly out there. We do not know how it works. No, we can and we should, and we cannot really survive if we don't learn more about that. So I would tell you that the big thing in search engine is ranking, and ranking has gone through a series of phases. Algorithms have been developed and then have been, here is, you know, how it works, and then can be hacked. BMW was the first to pay dearly from the first attempt to kind of hack a search engine. Google decided that because of what BMW was doing, was trying to essentially hack its data, it should be banned from its index for 6 months, like that. And BMW or anybody else could not fight it, because some years ago, somebody else, Spam Kings, had gone to court to fight Google, unprepared, a bunch of idiots. They got down a terrible decision by the court, and now Google, according to the court, owns all the data it has collected and can do whatever the hell it wants with that. Not only Google, it applies to every one of the other media. This is a very interesting lesson about how unprepared kind of knee-jerk solutions can backfire badly. Then we had some more, you know, kind of smart ideas. Again, did not work. The network that you saw before with the human growth hormone was an example of that. Google comes and has two amazing ideas, and everybody is really impressed with that. The first idea is that it doesn't matter if you're popular, you have to be reputable. So the higher reputation you have as a web page, then the more you can distribute your reputation to others. And that's impressed everybody, including computer scientists. It turns out that actually it can be spammed with something I call mutual admiration societies. Here's how mutual admiration societies works. Let's say that the people in this table decide to play a game with us. They start talking to each other with superlatives, like Trump superlatives. This is terrific, this is magnificent. Oh, you are so smart, my goodness, nobody else has thought about that. The rest of us kind of sit and watch. And if you come around, you would think that these are really the cool people. Because look at them. They all talk to each other as great. You know. So that's how this works. This is the way that Google is compromised even today, and they cannot really react. There was another thing that Google did that seemed great at that time, which is the taking advantage of the anchor text. Whenever you create a hyperlink, you write something on top of the hyperlink. This, Google realized, is a very short description of the validity of the page it links to. For example, you know, from this case, just looking at the links, you can figure out that Wellesley is the alma mater of Hillary Clinton, Madeleine Albright. It is one of the best liberal arts colleges, and it's a women's college. And if you go to the front page of Wellesley, you might not see any of these things because, you know, we don't write right in the front page all of these things. How do you spam it? You create Google bombs. You may have heard of that. The first famous one was like a joke, creating an association between the term miserable failure and George W. Bush. And we got a big laugh of it. It was very easy. Just 29 pages decided to do that, and then it came all the way top of the Google search. And then, of course, the Republicans disliked that, and they started doing the same thing, and they brought Jimmy Carter, Michael Moore, Hillary Clinton, and even Obama. In the first day of his inauguration, he was miserable failure. Many other things have been spammed that way. You know, things like terms like Egypt and Jew have been associated with derogatory terms because of this kind of trick. As I said, you know, it is good to understand a little bit the technology because otherwise it looks magic and it's not exactly like that. What Google did initially, it said, none of our business. That's what our algorithms are doing, and our algorithms are working perfectly. Why should we mess up with them? We found another set of new kind of attacks in Twitter in 2010 in the election of Ted Kennedy, and in the meantime, we found out that you cannot predict elections. Don't buy anybody who will tell you that they can predict elections with social media. I will spare you these details. I will just stop in one part. There are lots of examples of hacking that I would like you to talk to you about, but in the interest of time, let me go to, you know, the solutions. And if you want, just corner me and I'll tell you more about that. This is particularly important because one of the tricks they do is to target journalists, but I'll tell you about that later. Briefly, what we found is that the technique they used in 2010 on Twitter to create the so-called Twitter bomb, you can imagine like a Google bomb on Twitter, the steps were identical to the steps these Macedonians and others did in order to fool Facebook in the last elections. And what are the steps? Well, first, you create a set of fake accounts or fake websites. In the case of Twitter was, you know, about Coakley. In the case of Facebook was this kind of fake websites that were producing fake news. Then you create fake accounts that they kind of start posting these websites. The third step, which is the important, is you infiltrate neighborhoods, virtual neighborhoods, who agree on a common message, echo chambers. So they targeted groups like Hispanics for Trump or San Diego Bernicrats. Once they were kind of accepted in these groups, then they started posting the fake accounts, the fake news, and then they did not have to do anything else. The anger in the group they had targeted was enough to promote this information. In fact, they could, and they did, delete their accounts afterwards so that you could not even find it. In fact, I have found evidence that, you know, even today in the news is not there about who started, let's say, Pizzagate. I'll give you in a second. All right, and this is the paper if you want to know more about that. The fake news spread in plague, was it preventable? We have done a little bit of technology to help that. Go to twittertrails.com and see the tools we have created. One of these has to do with Pizzagate. Twitter Trails will give you some basic answers. It's not going to give you the exact answer whether something is true or false, but will give you a lot of evidence about who started the rumor, when it burst, how it spreads, who are the propagators, is there any skepticism, who are the main actors. And in the beginning, we have a summary. And this is the investigation about Pizzagate. Who started the rumor? The New York Times and the Washington Post, you can check it, have not gotten it right. It was this guy, jolly old Archer, coming from a network called Reddit, who started spreading the rumor 2 days before the elections. That's the perfect time to actually start spreading a rumor for the elections. 2 days so that it is enough time to spread the rumor, but not enough time to debunk it. How it was spreading, this kind of shows how much attention it was getting. The largest one of the messages is in the upper right corner. It was sent by Mehmet Ali Önel, a Turkish journalist who's promoting Pizzagate. Are you kidding me? Well, before him, there is a bunch of other tweets that are informing him and other Turkish journalists. And you can see time and again in Turkish tweets informing the Turkish public about Pizzagate. Why? There was some scandal in Turkey at that time. Turkish people were very upset for being, you know, accused or not treating Syrian children carefully. And he said, you know, look what they do in America. Look what Clinton is doing. And that was promoting big time. When you have a dialogue on any medium, it looks like that. You have a group of Republicans, let's say, and a group of Democrats, and there is a dialogue, and there is some interaction in between. When you have no dialogue, it looks like that. This is what a echo chamber looks on Twitter Trails. A bunch of people being really upset for what they hear. So how do we solve the problem with the information? The current educational system we have almost all over the world, which is based on memorization, is not good. Not only is not effective, it creates people that will be useless very soon because of the robots. We need something that emphasizes critical thinking, is not shying away from access to information, it teaches how information is collected and analyzed and presented, and helps each one of us determine its reliability. And as a benefit, you can actually have people educated who will be innovative because they know how to use their brain not to recall things, but to produce things. So that's where I started, and I'm closing now. It is a little more complicated than just needing informed citizens because you need quality democracy. If you just need democracy, you just make sure that every 4 years you have elections, and you know, right now in America we have democracy, right? Only we have somebody who would not call that it produces, you know, a quality type of democracy. You don't only need informed citizens, but you want unbiased and critically thinking. So more information is not the answer. We believe things for a variety of reasons. And here is what I will be closing the next few slides with. Think a little bit of how you decide and why you believe what you believe. We believe things because we trust those who tell us this information. Most of the time, and for thousands of years, that's how we used to do it. We also believe it's because of intrinsic reasons, like, you know, our own experience. We also need to use our critical thinking ability. This is a term that's used very loosely everywhere. People say, you know, you have to be thinking critically. What really we mean? It means to be able to understand the scientific method. That is, figure out what is it exactly you want to prove or disprove. Write it down. Don't just have it in your mind, because usually we're fuzzy in creating statements in our minds. And then look for evidence not only in favor of your hypothesis. Most people will just say, you know, I believe that. Is there any evidence? Yes, therefore it's true. No, look for evidence that goes against what you already believe and try to evaluate the two, hoping that eventually you have some ability to evaluate. And know yourself, know your critical thinking skills, because we know a lot of things that we learn incorrectly as children, things that we believed when we had taken some drugs, things we believe under fear, anger, passion, lots of things. It's not that we are stupid. Through evolution, we have developed a bunch of brains, from the lizard brain, which is based on fear, which is the lizard brain, and the human brain, which is based on logic. And you know what happened? We are just trying to use the frontal cortex, the thinking brain, this big chunk of fat here, as little as possible. Why? Because it is hard to do so. Every time you think, right now, I am tired and you are tired and we're just sitting in the same place. Why? Because we're thinking all of this time. That takes effort. Humans try to avoid thinking at all costs. Yes, we have to, be sincere about that and try to create an educational system. And being racist, what does it mean? That you're using your emotion. That's what the fake news industry, took advantage of. We are emotional creatures. We like to believe that we are logical creatures. We only use logic only when we absolutely have to.